possiamo smascherarci.
Sì, sì, ci si può mascherare. Allora, dicevo che io mi metterò in una posizione strana perché mi metto qua. Perché siccome facciamo lo streaming, io non c'ho posto dove mettermi, quindi io mi mettevo alle vostre spalle, ma non mi sembrava. Online?
Sì.
Anzi, facciamo così, io faccio la presentazione da dietro. E secondo me sì. Gli altri gelati sono accesi? Dovrebbe essere acceso.
Sì, lo so.
Dove? Ah, ok, perché io lo chiamo adesso per la presentazione. Dunque, allora, siamo pronti?
There we go. Are we ready to start? To start this round table, we will be speaking about a series of things about the competitiveness and the production chain of the Italian automotive industry. The competitiveness which needs to be supported in order to find new markets abroad and to be supported by the institutions. I will speak about the opportunities to support a market and to incentivize it. And this possibility seems to be very interesting for our markets. We will be speaking about support facilities for the employment from the protectionism, and also about the enhancing of changes that the automotive industry is living currently right now. We will be speaking about that with a series of speakers. Walter Caiume, which is president of Confindustria Emilia, Michele Crisci, which is president of Emurai, which should be connected right now. Can you confirm that Michele is listening to us and that we can hear him as well? Well, seems to be that no sign. It means that it's a sign of confirmation. Marcello Sai, the president of Sabalc and of the Union of Industries, Renzo Servadei, which will be coming here later on in a few minutes. And last but not less important, Angelo Fariani, which is president of ACI. So, not to remain here, I move around the room. The important is for the ones who are connected right now to see who is speaking. So where should we start from? President Stichiamani, please go ahead. There we go. We can start from you. I think the microphone is on. Yes, it is on. We are finishing. We just finished a very important meeting this morning where some visions studies have been presented in the field of automotive sector. And the McKinsey introduced a very important factor, which shows that the industry is moving much faster than the regulators and that the markets as well, as far as the focus team is concerned, which are electric cars, e-cars. So, as president of ACI, you represent all stakeholders connected, and this category doesn't seem to be at the center of priorities, nor of the politics and neither of the industry, because it took another direction and it's moving very fast. So we are currently making a revolution, and nobody asked the opinion of the consumers for that. Is that right? Yeah, I think it's correct. What the manager is saying is correct. Actually, there are mainly many players, many stakeholders in this game, and probably the automotive player is the final user, the one that has to make the choice, and he's the one who should mainstream actually the choices, but he was not sufficiently involved in this debate. We have the responsibility of representing all Italian stakeholders acting in the field of automotive sector. Well, we are the most popular trade union. We have the most number of associates. We asked ourselves a series of questions, and we are supporting a change, and we have to change something. That's the world imposing that on us. We are convinced that we have to pursue this main objective. And we should change something in the environment. This has to be done in modalities and in ways as not to create turmoil on the market, not to create turmoil for the manufacturers, but it cannot cannot create social exclusions, because if we concentrate on some forms which are too expensive, well, we automatically exclude a part of those stakeholders which are interested in changing the automotive sector. Well, when opting for a less polluting car, for example, the thing we should do is the following. We have a very, very old fleet of circulating vehicles, and which is not really secure. That's the biggest damage, actually, the safety, the security. And the incentivizing policy which has been determining to encourage this market is true, has a percentage of -25 compared to 2019. But the market, compared to the situation of 2020, is producing almost acceptable numbers. The problem is that all what lays behind Euro 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, they didn't have the turnover that we wished for. I don't know if you've ever seen the car that have been destroyed, with the cars of type Euro 0, Euro 5. We have the most car which have been destroyed were of the category of Euro 6 and Euro 4. So this says a lot of things. We are currently assessing highly polluting cars, and the minimum difference, the difference between the different categories is minimum. So let's look at the things and be objective. We have 15 millions of cars which are extremely polluting and dangerous. So if we do not create a mechanism facilitating people who don't have enough money, if we don't give an incentive to those who destroy the models such as 1, 2, 3, 4 and buy a new car, those people will never do that, and we will be carrying this weight for I don't know for how many years. So we will end up reducing something, well, peanuts, because 5, 6, and the last generations, they do not show such big difference. So we should really change the incentive scheme. Then we can also give you the example of the old incentive schemes. There are regions, for example, where, for example, there is no distinction. Actually, there are many cars being older than 20 years, and we should try to push people into the right directions. And we should also be consistent with that. What's the ASI proposal? The incentive schemes proposed until now are dedicated for a certain kind of users, if I got it right. So how can you speed up the turnover? Our proposal goes into this direction. We agree to pay 2,000 euros to those buying a new car. Yes, let's free the roads, let's free the squares in the cities. It's a kind of ecological bomb, if you want, if you keep an old car. But let's also give money to these people. Let's not give tickets, bus tickets or tram tickets. Well, we can say, okay, right, I don't use this car, I don't use it enough, so I change it, I buy it. If we give 6,000 euros to those users having an old Euro 0, Euro 1 can buy a new Euro 6 or Euro 7. The state should encourage the IPT reduction. I don't say that we should give a new car as a gift, but almost. We should give more possibility to those people who don't have the money to buy a new car. And in this moment, people are really afraid of COVID, of being contaminated, so they would be willing to buy a new car. But this government doesn't seem to be inclined to this idea, doesn't seem to support it. Well, I can't really comment on that. I can't say anything. I probably can recommend, can act as an advisor. But we should be very at ease. This is undoubtedly like that. These are the numbers. That's the reality we are facing. We are all mainstream to a zero emission producing model. But if it's not a zero producing model and it's a 0.2 producing model, it's good. We can free ourselves from the old cars, old polluting cars. I think it's better. Because let's say the truth, on zero emission models, we are facing a number of problems. So if we give an incentive, we do not have the recharging columns along the highways or big roads. We don't have enough electric power to feed these cars. It's a problem. So in cities, we have already seen that e-cars, they do work. But the problem is when you go outside a city that you are not autonomous enough. So when we didn't develop enough such possibilities, it's clear that incentivizing an e-car means, I'm sorry for that, really making a compromise and helping out those people who cannot face this change. Otherwise, we risk to face a social exclusion. All these people have the right to have a possibility to drive a less polluting car and a more secure car. We know that a Euro 0 pollutes 28 times more than a recent model, and the mortality risk of the old cars is 5 times higher. So these are all delicate aspects going beyond wishful thinking or the desire to have a less important impact on the environment. But the first impact we should think about is safety. People's safety. Oh, so you were nodding with your head while the president was talking. So I deduct that you are aligned with his position. Yes, I am. First of all, I would like to thank all the organizers for planning this event, because as I reflected upon, it's one of the very first event in presence, which marks a sharing of information among people. So it's almost a return to normality. So I really applaud this initiative. And we have another event called Motorsport Event next, which is another important initiative. So coming back to your question, I can say that, yes, the incentives are fundamental if we want to be attentive and careful for the environment. As the President Damiani said, it is true, we cannot have auto fleet being a Euro 0. We count on potential new models to renovate the auto fleet and to respect the environment. That's important. If we keep the old cars, we cannot speak about safety. If we want to be consistent when we talk about turnover of cars, We also have to talk about safety. When we drive old cars, when we drive new cars, we respect regulations, and this is fundamental. In other cases, we demonstrated many times that the aids being given to the automotive sector pay off and can be self-paid, and they are much higher than the other aids being put at the disposal of the people. So we have to opt for an option that can be beneficial to industries, to the environment, to the industries, because the industries will be using less benefits from the government if they invest in this field. So there is no doubt. On the contrary, the state aids should be structural. They should not be discussed every year or in function of the government. It's a strategic policy factor. We should eliminate, remove the old cars, which are now account for many millions of cars in Europe. It is a tangible data at fiscal level, at tax level, at cost level, and at happiness level of the mankind and of families, households. So I'm really convinced of that. If we make calculations, statistics, representations, if we calculate numbers, this new choice represents a benefit, because other countries other than Italy were really astonished by the results we achieved in Italy thanks to the state aids. Our colleagues from Spain, from France, from Germany, they really appreciated the state of the art of our choices when we received such aids. This really helped us to improve the situation. This is, of course, the first tangible result, and the tangibility speaks for itself. If you look at the numbers, nobody can tell us something different. Numbers cannot be discussed. But recently, the automotive sector received a guarantee of the incentive renewal. We will be seeing this clause when we will be reading the new law decree. The new supports, the new aids are fundamental, and they are really important for the sector, because it seemed that the incentives wouldn't be renewed as far as the market is concerned. We are at the dawn of a new day. Before reaching a zenith, the maximum point, well, there's still a lot to do, but let's try to accelerate this timing. But there is a dialogue ongoing. We are currently preparing a series of analysis, studies to have this tangibility, because, as I said before, we start from numbers, and we issue different proposals to the government. There are no ideologies. There are no, as the President Sticky Damiani said, there are a series of factors relating to environment, to industrial growth, to security. And in this moment, the industry needs to grow, needs to generate a cash flow and a growth to be invested in the technological transition we are currently living. We mentioned this meeting that the automotive sector had. Let's try to involve President Crisci. I received the news that he's hearing us. Michele, can you hear us? Good afternoon. Can you hear me? Yes, we hear you very far, but we can see you. Yes. Do you have any different news about the incentives? Because 10 days ago, we spoke about this point on another occasion. Different news? No. I salute the presidents. We are all very united, and we have been united even when sitting at the table a few days ago. I like the words he used, President Scudieri. We are at the dawn of a new day. hopefully. We still haven't received any guarantee about that, but just hope, just an opening from the government. And the government spoke about the possibility of refinancing the incentives. And as Scudieri said, what we need is really a different approach in the economic policy and in the automotive sector. So hopefully we can see a few surprises at the end of July already. I always say that problems we are exposed to are very clear, and opportunities, numbers are very clear as well, as President Tamiani said, and Scudieri as well. We need to find the political will to understand the sustainability we are looking for our future. It's first of all an economic sustainability, industrial sustainability, and social as well, which means that people have the guarantee to move and the possibility of buying new vehicles to move. These problems are absolutely solvable, can be solved together, but we should have a strategic plan. We gave important data to different associations we are cooperating with. We have a common agreement. So I think these are all elements that can be helpful to draw a plan as our country deserves. Let's remind to all of us that our country is one of the biggest worldwide in economic and production terms. We should remember the weight, actually, of our country. So our turnover is 20% of the GDP, and it's almost 1.2% of actually of the state contribution. So it's really a determining sector. It's a question that I always ask in similar situations. It is true that this sector has a weight in Italy, but if this is the truth, why don't we have enough convincing power, actually? I don't know who wants to respond to this provocative question. Well, of course, for years, the automotive sector has been the cow that we milked, actually, that generated so much riches. Probably it was underrepresented, if you want. It represents an enormous technological richness, actually. So the power with which it is represented invite us to reflect upon its weight, and actually that's the reason why it doesn't have enough weight at an international level. Before, it used to be normal to consider that it was an important sector, and this today has a different identity, which is much more profound, much more. It acts as a forerunner in the field of technology. It's much more represented in economic numbers.
So if you agree, I will move to the competitiveness of the Italian automotive industry. This morning as well, in the presentations we saw, the priority that emerged is that the fact that Italian companies must be proactive on the foreign market. So I would like to ask to Dr. Ferro, are the Italian companies ready to meet the challenge characterized by the automotive industry right now? Yes, I think so, because it's a challenge concerning the entire supply chain. If we consider the composition of the export of the Italian cars in the world, 32 billion of exportation, so 57% cars, 39% component parts, and 400 tires. And then, of course, they have a made in Italy ability. They can be sold everywhere in the world with a direct presence, and so their value is even higher. And components, what are they? Just mechanical parts, electronics, and other accessories and parts. And it's not necessary to highlight the importance of this valley for powertrain, for mechanics, for components, electronics. It is developed in 4 cities: Eindhoven, Munich, Agrate, and Catania. And if we consider the evolution in the automotive industry going towards connectivity and sustainability for cars, these enabling factors are rooted in Italy. For example, as for electric vehicles, the effectiveness of electrical motor has been improved, and the Seca fuel has been created in Catania, and the electronics, controlling the engine is based on the technologies developed in Agrate Brianza. And for example, I would not linger on the components because Mr. Scudieri is here, so he can be more precise than I am. So just to tell you that the supply chain has the ability to meet this challenge, to seize this opportunity. Italy is the second manufacturing country non-exporting in a condition of complete absence of raw material and capitals that are not the same as in the US or Great Britain, thanks to 3 factors: technology, 5 centuries of creativeness, from Leonardo da Vinci, the human capital, and the ability to adapt, the resilience that is typical of the Italian companies, Italian entrepreneurship. If the system is able to provide incentives for this leadership, so research and development, training, and incentives for the recovery, so these 3 main pillars, then we can reaffirm our role on foreign markets as the Made in Italy used to have, and to seize the challenges and the opportunities. If we consider the mega trend, the export and the industry, and I followed McKinsey's presentation this morning, we have several shared common: sustainability, shifting towards Asia, and the digital world. This is good both to the Made in Italy and to the automotive industry. So the excellence that is representing the automotive industry can lead the other supply chains around this world, around the automotive. I didn't mention the other reason why, in my opinion, Italy is the second manufacturing country, because it has a unique ability to create clusters in creating and boosting synergies, partnerships, collaborations between some few big leaders and many, many small, medium enterprises that are highly flexible. So my answer is yes. Mr. Kayumi, for Emilia-Romagna, what is the weight of the automotive sector? How important is it? This morning in the round table, we discussed the decision of Silk Automotive was to open a factory here. And so my provocative question was, for those who are completely rooted in the local territory, is it a demonstration of the importance of this region, or this is something disturbing? So if we create an attractiveness, it means that this region is interesting. So our territory is working at worldwide level, and the representativeness of our 3,500 companies with more than 2,000 headquarters in the world, in US, China. So our territory contaminate, but also is contaminated. It's not the right word in this period of time during the pandemic, but it gives the idea of attracting and being and having an attractive power. So the fact that Chinese and American companies, this joint venture has been developed in this area, in this region. We find many reasons. First of all, our expertise that concerns all the personnel employed in this region. It is used to produce small series high-quality products, and this is not something taken for granted in any area. Usually, you either focus on one side or the other, but this is the peculiarity of our Motor Valley. It is something that is well known, and it is created thanks to the cooperation of all the corporation organizations here. So our role is to boost relationships among the different companies, and I think the automotive industry creates a lot of benefits in this region. And if we call it Motor Valley, it means maybe later on we will switch the name into Vehicle Valley, but this is the meaning of it. Our area also has other expertise. Probably in our Confindustria, you have 20 chains, and one is, of course, characterized by the automotive industry. And then we have light vehicle, heavy vehicle, but they concern automotive. So very important aspects for our technological territory. So is it training important in order to boost this growth? Pontremoli this morning underlined the importance of creating new skills and of creating skills that are enough to meet the needs of the future. I think that on this area, a lot of things have been made. As Confindustria Emilia, maybe you don't know it, we launched one of cross-training projects from management, top management up to blue collars, with an e-learning operation residing on our digital platform, where 70,000 users per year can receive their training, and inside you might find several expertise. So why did we develop this platform? Because in every cluster, district, or today we talk about value chains, you find the so-called leading companies, driving companies of the supply chain. They have to train their personnel in-house, and then the other companies of the chain. So we developed this project called Study in Action, where 70,000 users per year can receive training. So any top brand in our territory can use this training and can grant their training to their suppliers. And this project has been launched 4 months ago. And then let's move to another district that is very important in the automotive industry, the one near the Turin area, which is undergoing an important change and transformation. So to President Matteo, wanted to ask Marziali if, in your opinion, Stellantis represents something good or bad? And secondly, how the Turin organizations that were focused in the Italian production will get adapted to the situation and will focus on the foreign markets, so the export. First of all, let me thank the organizers for inviting me. It's the second time I meet my friend Kayumi, and it means that we have to overcome, this regional sponsorship. A couple of days ago, I was here in Reggio Emilia for the presentation of the Silk W project. This region has several aspects in common with our region, with our district. And I would like to stress that Turin, of course, has a long history in automotive. We shall not invent anything at all, but we have to look forward. Turin played a crucial role in the 50s, in the 80s, so in moving from an agricultural reality to the industrial reality. We reminded the great and disruptive technological change, electrification, autonomous cars and self-driving cars, and the importance of being the leader in the supply chain. I always insist on this. We need that our supply chains, and in particular we are referring to the automotive one, we need them to grow. But they must be more proactive, they must innovate, control costs, and be there for customers. So Stellantis' opportunity must be considered as a huge opportunity, because either manufacturers, component manufacturers, car manufacturers, this is the direction, the future direction. A few days ago, we saw a list of the first 15, 20 component makers, component manufacturers with a higher turnover. And they are all focused in the automotive field, but you didn't find an Italian name in it. So we have to play a role in tier one, so the suppliers of the chain, providing a system to the car manufacturers, but of course you do not have to refer to the automotive industry. It's better talking about mobility. So it is very important to identify a long-term project based on 10 years and to create a partnership with the different suppliers of the chain, because suppliers are a few hundred. So you have an entrepreneur with an ability to innovate, but it's not the entrepreneur providing the final component of the system. So they have to create a synergy, they have to create real partnerships with a common project, long-term project, but you made it. You did it with the packaging valley. IMA by Mr. Vacchi, what did they do? They followed this procedure with the K-RETs in automotive. Suppliers or Toyota suppliers, Toyota took them around the world, 11 million vehicles, and they selected their historical partners with whom they innovated and they grew. So this is something that didn't happen over here, but luckily over the last years, most of our companies, most of our suppliers diversified their production and they also moved abroad. But your study with the different professional association, it says that 40% of our company's turnover depends on FCA, not Stellantis. FCA. So it is a challenge. We fill in all the conditions to win this challenge, to win this game. And it's also a matter of timing, because we are running out of time. So these people producing 10 million vehicles, they do not wait for the suppliers, They want it immediately. Look at the acceleration in the electrical field. 70% of full electric, born electric vehicles or hybrid are produced today. And then until a few months ago, there has been a great acceleration, and this is the future direction on incentives and aids. Of course, we need them, but serious ones, not to buy an electric vehicle or to change a Fiat Panda that is worthless. And maybe it's income ability. That's the where we have to act. You know, we have to scrap these cars we have to remove these cars from our street. If we do not do it with our government, with this government, then we won't proceed. We won't go anywhere. This is the right interlocutor. This is what they can do. Before, it was sometimes not in a constant way. A couple of years ago, there has been just one meeting, two meetings, and then the crisis came. But 1,040 million of aid incentives, we have to compare them with 8 billion of France and 6 in Germany. And I would like to add another thing. Productions. We went down up to 450,000 vehicles, and Slovakia 1,100,000 units. We produce 1.6, 1.8 million cars. I remember when I was a boy, when I was a child, millions of vehicles were produced per day. But then the problem is that we go back to our production rates. We have to produce more and more cars so that we can measure up with more important volumes. We cannot stop to today's figures. And then I'm concluding, of course, the country must be competitive. And what about the gigafactory that is going to be created in Turin? Can it represent one of the opportunities you mentioned before? But did you talk to Minister Cingolani? First of all, we hope that Stellantis, and during these coming days, we should have an electrification day, and that Stellantis can present a business case on electrification, one or more. But what is gigafactory? 12 kilowatt per hour, 1 gigafactory. So if we go back to 600, 700,000 vehicles, we might need 3, 4 gigafactories. Where, first of all, we have to convince the producer to come to Italy. We must be competitive. And I visited 1 gigafactory a few months ago. Since it is energy-fed factory, that's a problem because energy in Italy is really, really expensive. Stellantis has 2 joint ventures with a factory that will be founded in France and Germany. So we hope we can attract this gigafactory here in Italy. And yesterday I talked to member of parliament, and we are a little bit behind. Do you know something more about the gigafactory? So the topic gets into a strategic and evolution topic in the civil society, apart from the economic fact. It's something current to talk about a gigafactory or quantity of money that is going to move from Europe towards different areas that must be defined. To build up a gigafactory from a technological point of view, it's not difficult, but producing in a competitive way an electric powertrain is a competitive factor and a strategic function in order to procure raw materials that are fundamental for this. So it plays a fundamental role, a strategic role between our country and countries, providing energy and raw materials, and this competitive appeal that must be necessary in order to produce products that are convenient for the automotive sector. So we must find the right location. We must reach international pacts and agreements. Otherwise, we can build up, of course, factories, but it will be hard to feed them, because we are running out of energy, and then to activate several skills so that we can grant new professionalism to this sector. And then I'll add another topic. Electrification is something that is well known, but for the industrial democracy, we have to propose a technological alternative that is hydrogen. So the real freedom is represented by the alternative product. If we all focus on electrification, which is well known, so which is taken for sure in platforms of new cars and in the political world, but we also have to find an alternative that is hydrogen, because it's not possible to be standardized. On the contrary, it is really dangerous for the industrial democracy to follow these well-known pathways where international agreements, right to extract minerals in order to build up these batteries, are something taken for granted and contractualized, and this represents a danger. Hydrogen is the alternative for Europe in order to counter something that is well known and well present on the market. So I would like to stress this. It's a very important action, an in-depth action, allowing us to have an important technological alternative. And since the transition is not only interesting in one technology, but a set of technologies, specialization will be crucial to reweigh the geopolitical situations.
Let's change the subject. You represent an extremely important sector, which is the spare points and the aftermarket services. So the electrical field is really something that causes a headache, because the software, as we said this morning, will be fundamental for the cars. But in many cases, it won't be possible to access it. So the e-cars are actually something dramatic for you. Well, actually, I'm optimistic by nature, but that's the reasonable optimism. I would like to add an argumentation on the things that have been said before. As I said this morning, we should be careful for communication. We should have a communication which is not just the result of passion, of a passionate speech. We speak about e-cars. So at present, and I won't delve into details, we have currently 40 million of vehicles. We sell 1 million of it, and we have one third of electrical vehicles. This is the data. For the coming years, if we want to mitigate the problem of changes, climate changes in the environment, we should have a serious and structured industrial policy. I will reconnect to the proposal that the President Damiani made in the last meeting with our Minister Giorgetti, saying that we have all these used cars. We have people having a Panda, but they have the same dignity of people having a hyper supercar. They have the right to repair, to have their car repaired, to change if they want it. So first of all, we think that there should be an industrial policy at 360 degrees. In this industrial policy, I would like to mention actually about one factor. When we speak about the automotive sector in this field of passion, we should not be provincial. We should not limit ourselves to the Emilia-Romagna region, to Turin. We speak about Italy, about the country. So long live God. We should think about the fact that we have an industrial system made of spare parts of many companies producing spare parts and components, which in some sectors are leaders, world leaders. So it is true that, as our president says, that we have many components coming from foreign companies, but it is true that these companies have some factories in Italy, and they produce a high turnover. We are lucky because we have an industrial district in Piedmont region and in Emilia-Romagna region that is leader. The tires are dismantled in Italy. Everything is made in Italy. So the technology goes hand in hand with vehicle, if you want, vehicle manufacturing. Data, and here I like to be honest, as always, we say in medius stat virtus. On a certain side, the manufacturers are right when they speak about cybersecurity. I cannot be defenseless facing an hacker. I should be protected. Absolutely, that's true. But on the other side, we should keep the freedom to choose the components. So even the most honest person in the world, if he sees that has to face a monopoly, well, it's not fair. So we think that some certifications form of the operators are necessary. The operator operating in these systems should have a series of personal features, of training features that is important, should know the data, and this should be validated so as to actually to determine whether a company is right or not to carry out such operations. That's our position. Michele Crisci is still listening. Mr. Servadai mentioned the importance of manufacturers. Michele, are you there? How will the relationship between the manufacturers and the dealers be affected, and also the aftermarket and the components relating part? Well, we are still discussing about that, and it is clear that it will play a very important role. And also the decisions imposed by the European Commission will play a role. Within 2 years, we will have to abandon the distribution form all around Europe and on the European market. So we will see what the decisions are at European level by which we should abide. There are a series of phenomena which are becoming quite evident. And on one side, we have the increase of the production costs, which is producing a sacrifice, having an impact. And this is a very important field. On the other side, we have some trends that the customers are very clearly demonstrating. And a part of this production chain will be shorter if you want to guarantee a more direct contact with the manufacturing houses. So on one side, we are waiting for new rules to come out. And on the other side, we are starting to think about a potential cooperation with the manufacturers, which will be fundamental and which will play a different role compared to what it used to be in the past, in the year 2000, where the production cycle was quite normal. The online field will play also a very important role, and here the electrification of cars will cause a flattening of the offer of certain manufacturing houses. So it will be easier if you want to choose a car online, as many users are already demonstrating. It is a quite important transition that shall be verified within the next months to monitor the evolutions. It is clear that we are still playing an important role, and the reparation, the aftermarket, will be as important as now. So we are speaking about electrification, e-cars, hydrogen. We are also starting to reflect upon the mobility as a comprehensive sector. There are also self-guiding models, self-guidance, ethical principles, and law principles, legal principles. We speak about responsibility already when manufacturing a car and also when repairing it, and this will be fundamental. These dynamics are different if you compare this situation with the past one, and will require different setups, different distribution rules, and different repairing rules. The same subjects, the same stakeholders will have different responsibilities, if you want. President Sinki Damiani, don't you think the Italian government has quite a schizophrenic behavior? It speaks about the responsibility of being responsible, and then when it speaks about the possibility of introducing electrification lines and loading columns, it doesn't have the availability. So it's nice to have, actually, if you want a nice project, but it's not nice not to have the money to finance it. Well, I remind that in the PNRR, we have money for 24,000 columns. Well, we know that within a couple of years they will be old, if you want, but there is still a lot of financing already. Well, we expect after this turmoil and complex period, we expect us to sit at a table and speak about many aspects relating to that. We are the ones who should give direct signs. People today should be able to buy a car without fearing that after a few days, a few months, that car is not worth anymore or cannot enter the city center. So in this difficult moment in the months we faced, where we said that as from 2025, all cars with thermal engines are not allowed to enter the cities, this was wrong because people at that point, they didn't change anything in their cars because it was not clear what they should do. So on the other side, and that's what we were talking about before, when we speak about more niche products, but which are important, like historical cars, well, the fact of not being able to distinguish the old cars from the historical cars is something that is not feasible. The European Union already issued a directive to indicate the way. Actually, an historical car is a 30-year-old car. We are one of the European countries that we consider 20-year-old cars to be historical cars. So not to mention the closed list. So this might seem a detail, but actually, well, you can grasp the important signals of this debate so as to plan your future accordingly. Somebody who has a car being 19 years and 6 months old, do you think it will be not possible to bring this car to an age of 20 years? Well, it is possible, and this person can pay actually a tax of half tax or full tax. So if you want, we can communicate within the different regions. And we want to encourage people to change this fleet, but we risk to do the opposite. This mistake we are doing, by which a 20-year-old car can be considered an historical car, regardless of the type, if this car is well kept, should not be privileged through this kind of provisions. I think it's wrong. It's a wrong concept. We should give guidelines which are clear for the future. Even the young people, young timers who are approaching this world, let's tell them that not all 20-year-old cars will have a future. Let's see clearly which one will have a future and which not. So it would be necessary to carry out a training for young people who are really passionate about historical cars. Unfortunately, our time is coming to an end. If you all agree, I will do a last panel starting from the same question. So which are the priorities to encourage the Italian automotive sector to be competitive? Let's start from Mr. Servadei and let's move. Yes, we should be telegraphic because there is another session right thereafter. I will tell you something different for sure from what the others will say. As I said, yes, as far as the components are concerned, we buy a lot from abroad. So I'm really ready to support the initiatives which have been mentioned. We see what's happening in other parts of the world. We will come to Bologna as well to the Automotive trade fair. We are proud to have the second most important trade fair in Europe. So I strongly support the export as far as the components are concerned. And correct me if I'm wrong, but we invoice actually our turnover accounts for 40 million. So we are operating on a global market. Let's move forward with what we have and we had so far. Export, as far as the export is concerned, the first 4 months of this year saw an increase of 20% in the export. So our country performed much better than many of our competitors. So we lost 500 billions last year. Now we are getting back to the competitive levels. So we have to prepare the production chain and to add the electrification projects. We have a good production line. In Piedmont region, we generate about 25% of the automotive production worldwide. We have competitive companies. We keep on doing so. On doing that, we should facilitate the creation of partnerships to be able to carry out the most ambitious investments that are required to be competitive. And we should also work on the competitiveness of our companies. If we are not competitive, well, other car manufacturers and Stellantis and others will be concerned. So we should invest in training. We mentioned the training beforehand as well. And one of the most important objectives is to facilitate mobility, sustainable mobility, and technological transformation. Yes, so we have seen other company rising at world level. Italy still remains important, not only for exports, but also as is compelling for foreign countries who want to come to Europe to produce. Italy is very important, so we need a stable government. Well, I would say the expenditure should be, we should give priority to the human asset and to the investment, because Europe lost the match of the web economy and is really competing on the mobility, even if the United States are still a benchmark parameter. We are much more forward in terms of technologies, but let's not forget that the other benchmark parameter is China. So we have the tools. I have been member of the Forum of the European Union for the EPCI, and I can assure that being sustainable and being technological, investing in microelectronics and batteries, well, are very important today. They have the utmost priority, and PNR gives many resources to that. I wouldn't just concentrate on the 1.4 sector when speaking about automotive. When I've been asked the question, how many resources are destined to the automotive sector, I always answer 220 thousand billions. So what help us the companies to operate represents an advantage for the whole production chain. So we can confirm that it is necessary for the automotive sector to account for one of the most important sectors in terms of innovation. That's the tangible and important for the transition in terms of evolutionary balance in our civil society and in terms of future. It's a future that might be bright if we face this great opportunity in a systematic way, and this period shall also help us to grasp the possibilities offered to us every day. We actually create the necessity. We need to grow to make our companies grow. We need them to become international, and we need their presence, and we also need their will to evolve according to the car makers' demand, which is becoming more and more global. So the dimension, the size is important. I think the government wants to analyze the possibility of facilitating the growth, not only on the technological point of view, but also on the size point of view. We need to grow and to acquire new companies, so we also need to be better positioned. Italy must be and remain compelling, has the potential to be it. Obviously, one word is fundamental: to remove bureaucracy and to simplify bureaucracy, and digitalization should help us in doing that. The less profound analysis to be carried out will help us to better understand our territories and to promote them. Borgo 4.0, I'm very proud of this initiative, is promoting actually and is seeing the company every day, the reality that our companies face every day. It speaks about a territory that have seen actually the failure of many companies, and I hope these companies can find their way and can revalue the old professions that were actually active on those territories and were characteristic of an extraordinarily interesting culture. We need to increase the value of the past to face the future. Italy is rich with this capital. It wouldn't be possible not to listen. We should be synergic. We should create new synergies. And those who operate in a sector which is appreciated worldwide should invest in the future, because the future offers a lot of potential. We should at least produce at least 1,200,000 vehicles on the national level, and this is fundamental. Otherwise, a break-even point that is necessary cannot be reached. So in whatever moment, Italy should be the cradle of rebirth. These are factors which are absolutely important. President Damiani, the floor is yours. I agree with what has been said on this issue, and I support the idea that the ACI thinks that this is an extremely strategic moment, because the recovery after the lockdown is more compelling than before. So this technological innovation we spoke about must be stronger compared to the past, because we have to face so many challenges at the very moment. We would like to be next to the manufacturers, the spare part manufacturers, and all the stakeholders of operating in the automotive sector by offering all products that are useful, and thanks to the assets we have, we are available to acquire new facilities to be more present on the territory. As Paolo said, we should defend the companies located on our territory. That's very important. And we should offer throughout Italy the possibility to carry out tests, lab tests, and everything that can be necessary to speed up the procedures when facing specific and niche problems. And this can help us to act quite quickly and to give the possibility to everybody to speed up the processes and the creation of technologies. Thank you. So we overcame the time given to our disposal. So we close this debate and we wait for the other panels to start. Thank you very much.